A Tiny Revolution features adults having adult conversations, which means that adult language is probably going to be present, just so you know. Hey there, you're listening to A Tiny Revolution, a podcast about ordinary people living revolutionary lives. I'm your host, Kevin Garcia. Welcome to another episode, my friends. It has been a crazy week already. I mean, I guess it's the middle of the week, so of course, it's allowed to be crazy like that. But anyways, if you haven't already, go over to my YouTube channel and check out my newest video. It's called Dear Chris Pratt, and I'm talking to Chris Pratt about the fact that he goes to a church that he thinks is welcoming, but obviously they are not welcoming. Meow, 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 meow. So you can go check that out, share that. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and do that. And while you're at it, you can head to thekevingarcia.com and become a sustaining partner and subscribe and get the YouTube channel. What is it called? No, you can get my ebook. That's what I'm trying to say. You can get my ebook for free, which is like a really fun collection of essays on sexuality and faith and doing the thing. And I don't really have a lot going on. I'm going to be up in Rochester, New York in March, and I'm going to be hopefully at Whitworth University in April. We're still waiting on confirmations from that. And if you are looking for someone to, if you want to book me for your school, you can go to thekevingarcia.com/speaking and get me on your roster. I think that's everything from me today. I kind of just want to dive in. Before we dive into the conversation, Queerly Beloved Tees is live. The shop launched on Monday. It's pre-sale right now, which means it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks to get your stuff to you, but you are going to get a 15% discount when you subscribe to our mailing list. So go over to queerlybeloved.shop, that's S-H-O-P, and subscribe to the mailing list, get that coupon code, and then have some fun, order some stuff. Even the love shirt is going to be on sale, hopefully by the end of today. So, today I'm talking with my friend Cindy Wong Brandt. Cindy was born in an irreligious home, but was sent to a school for missionary children in Taiwan, where she converted and spent most of her formative years in conservative evangelicalism. Her evangelical creds include missionary school, Wheaton College, where Billy Graham attended, seminary, full-time career in missions, and then her faith shifted and shifted again, and then she became a parent of 2 children and a dog, and then her life just continued to shift. And if you're like her, you might be floundering in your faith, shifting, feeling lonely or isolated or ostracized by your faith community because you have become somebody new. But the good news about that is Cindy says you're not alone. And the second thing that she says is that the exciting thing about living in these tensions is that we get to create the life we want to live. She's a podcaster, speaker, writer, community builder. She's got her new book, Parenting Forward, subtitle, How to Raise Children with Justice, Mercy, and Kindness, with a foreword by Rachel Held Evans. It's coming out soon. I think it's going to be an incredible book. But in this conversation, we talk about, being an Asian woman in a more patriarchal context. We talk about being a Christian in a non-Christian context. There's so many different amazing things. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation with my friend Cindy Wong Brandt. You are Cindy Wong Brandt. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yay! You pronounced my name right.
Yeah, I saw the tweet. I was like, put that in my pocket because I'm going to remember.
Yes.
Cindy Wong Brandt,
Yeah.
You have been blogging about parenting unfundamentalists after coming out of evangelical and fundamentalist culture. You've been talking about how to parent forward, I believe is the name of your book that you're working on. Is that correct?
Parenting Forward.
Parenting Forward. And you also kind of run this Facebook group of parents who are also trying to figure out how to raise their kids unfundamentalists. Is that correct?
Right. That's
right.
So
if you were to describe what you mean by parenting unfundamentalist, what exactly does that mean for you?
Well, it's just using the parenting angle basically to do what a lot of people in this generation are already doing, which is deconstruction and reconstruction. I know there's problematic terms, but I think we know what it means. I think that a lot of us grew up fundamentalists. We're discovering the toxicity that was within the system. We want to know how to shed that spiritual baggage. And for parents, especially, we have this additional motivation, which is we're raising a whole new generation, and how can we do better by them? And then it's also reconstruction in a way, because we're thinking, okay, well, now that we've decided this is bad, then what's good? What are the values and the methods and the way to live our lives that promotes the most human flourishing for our kids, which is what all parents want, is the best for our kids.
Yeah. Was there a time, so like, when did you kind of like come into this, to your own like awakening, to your own deconstruction, and how did that first start playing itself out in your family dynamics?
Well, it's been like a lot of people, it's very gradual, and I'm beginning to I think it's just normal when it took 25 years to internalize that whole system of thinking. You can't get rid of it overnight. So I would say like my entire 30s was a whole decade of awakening, and it's just with all different kinds of issues, with nationalism, with racism, with homophobia, just one by one, deconstructing those ideas. And I had my kids young because I was raised evangelical. I was taught to marry young and have kids as soon as possible, because motherhood was the purpose for my life.
Yeah, your body is meant to be a baby factory.
Exactly. Yeah. So I got started right away and had my babies young. And so I was kind of going through this process of deconstruction at the same time as my kids were growing up. And I think at some point in there, because when they're babies and toddlers, you're not thinking so much about their faith formation.
Yeah, exactly. Mostly like, are you going to eat
But
today?
at some point, right. I mean, although thinking back, I remember when my daughter was 3 years old, I was reading her like a book about catechism. So I really did. I still have that book. Yeah, I mean, that was the way we were taught to, raising godly children. That's part of the package, right? So, and so at some point I started thinking, I don't know. I started noticing that I would leave out big chunks of those books that I was reading. Like I was still reading them, but I would begin to edit and rethink a lot of the things that I was teaching my kids. And eventually the tension just became greater and greater, because I started to unbelieve so many of those things that I thought was the right thing to teach my kids. And so at that point was when I started kind of blog, I was a blogger. So, bloggers blog. So I started writing about these issues. And that's how kind of the whole project of raising children Unfundamentalist and then the book idea came out of that.
Yeah. And here you are now. I don't know, like when you were starting to go through like the great cloud of unbelief that we all do, like I feel like there's this sense of like, as soon as we hit that point of like starting to like recognize that we just simply don't believe the things we used to believe, it gets scary, because it's almost like I'm pulling at this little thread on the tapestry of my life, which, is like riddled with like, and also so interconnected with this very specific way of looking at faith and life and the afterlife for so many of us. And so like it's like we pull and pull and pull and pull to the point where just like it's all just thread on the ground, and we're just like, okay, how do I start? So for me, it was a scary thing. Like I was really, really afraid when I started, like not just the stuff around gay stuff, but like I think it was like when I started asking, like, do I actually believe hell is a thing, like literal hell?
Yeah. But that's part of the indoctrination, is to make you be afraid.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be afraid. The system was built to make you afraid to question these things so that you don't ever do it.
Yeah.
But the thing I went to seminary, so I learned a lot of things about the faith in an academic way. But I think part of like building a family for myself is, and then going through deconstruction, is to see how practical all of these things play out, you know, like faith and all these issues can seem heady, but the reality is it impacts everything in your life. It impacts the relationship between partners and your social life and your work and of course your church and your community. Like I think that has been part of that unraveling is realizing, oh my gosh, this matters to every single thing that I do in my life. And I think that's also very daunting.
Can I ask a question like involving like not just being evangelical Christian, but then also being an Asian woman? Like there's also all these very much these large cultural implications that go along with that. Was part of your deconstruction also like having to kind of like wrestle with certain like stuff around patriarchy? And I mean obviously the patriarchy, like dealing with those sorts of things, but just like, did you find it to be more difficult because many Asian cultures like have a very, very understood way of how family works and how social interactions work between men, women, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I live in a very patriarchal society, and I think that evangelicalism compounded that. What Christianity should do is dismantle patriarchy, but instead of doing that, it kind of made validated the patriarchy that's part of Asian culture. And so that's, it's painful. I have a lot of things going against me. I'm a woman, I'm Asian, I'm an Enneagram 8.
Yes, also same. I love being an 8. And I also think girl 8s
are you an 8?
Yes, 8 wing 7.
Okay. Yeah. I think I might be. I don't know. I haven't figured out my wing, but I think I might be 8 wing 7 as well.
The way I put it is just like 8 wing 7s is just like anger, but make it fun.
Yes, I love it. Yeah.
So you're
just I've had some not so fun experiences. So I don't know if you know the story about my job resignation.
I don't think so, but I'm ready to listen if you want to share it.
Yeah,
it can also
it's
be
pretty
off
public.
If it's public, then sure. But if I was going to say if you want it to be off the record, we can do that too.
No, I was working at a conservative Christian school.
I think last time we talked, you were telling me that.
Right. That's when it just happened. So it was a lot more fresh at that time. But yeah, so it's 2 years ago now. And I went to a pride march in my city and I posted a pride picture, and they told me that I can't post stuff like that as long as I was working at the school. And so I quit. So that's a really short version of what turned out to be pretty traumatic for me. And that was when I discovered, well, not when I discovered the Enneagram, but when I started caring about it, because, I think I was searching, I was hurting, and I needed something to, I needed help. And the Enneagram helped me because part of my, the trauma of going through that experience was not understanding why people weren't supporting me as much as I thought that they should have been. It was one of those things where you realize who your true friends were when you go through a crisis. I just didn't understand. I was like, if you were gay affirming and you really cared about me and this issue, then you should be speaking up a whole lot more than you are. But the Enneagram just made me realize that's how I think, right? As an 8, my impulse is to just do the right thing and be very vocal and challenge the system.
Because I think what's interesting about being 8s is that to us, it's just like, well, of course this is the right way to do it. Like let me show you. I know the thing.
Right. Like
I've done the research. I know how to execute the plan. Like, it's easy. Look at me. I'm doing it. Why can't you do it?
Exactly. Yeah. And people were saying, the people who agreed with me were like, oh, you're such a hero. And I resented that actually, because I'm like, no, I'm not a hero. This is just what everyone should be doing.
It's very easy, I think, like, and I don't know if like this is just like how eights are built, or just like how like people who like do the work that we do, like in like the evangelical, post evangelical sphere. I feel like there is like this sentiment that I get this. I've gotten this from a few people of just like, you know, I love your work. You're doing such important things, and I'm just like, or I've heard like, oh, I wish I could do X, Y, and Z. I'm just like, you can. I'm like, you
Right.
really can. It's not that hard, especially in like this little like progressive Christian world or whatever we're gonna call it. Like, it's super small. Like, you start a blog, you're somebody
it is.
now.
Right.
So it's just a matter of like, I think we're like need to learn how to take up our own space and realize that like, just because I have a podcast or just because you have a blog and a book or whatever, it's like, it does not make us like more revolutionary than the person who is just like living their life and living it well.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that a lot too. I could never do what you do. I could never say what you say like that publicly. And I'm like, you just say it.
Like, you literally can.
Yeah.
And I guess this also comes from our eightness, because I was talking with a friend of mine. We have a mutual friend who's a 1, and I was asking him just like, well, why can't he just like ask for what he wants? Like, that doesn't make sense to me that people wouldn't be able to do that. And she said, well, just like the way that his character makeup as a 1 is made up is that like, that's not a thing he can really do, because he doesn't even know what he needs or wants. And it's just like the way like your brain's work is different. And I'm like, oh, you mean not everybody thinks like me? Weird.
Yeah.
So it's been,
and that's why it was so helpful. It was healing for me because I was ready to cut everyone out of my life.
Yeah.
But when I learned about my own impulse and what drives me, then I realized, oh, okay, this is not what drives everyone else, and that's okay. It feels like such a basic lesson, but I really did have to learn it, and I learned it via the Enneagram. So I'm thankful to the tool, and over the past 2 years, I've tried to learn more about other numbers, and it's enlightening, and I want to dig even more deeply into my own number. And I've had my doubts because I'm not as, I don't know, I don't seem to be as confrontational as other 8s are, and so that's kind of made me question my number. But
you could be,
I still feel,
well, what's interesting about numbers too is that if you want to get like grad school level Enneagram, there's also the subtypes. And so within the subtypes, there's like really like, they said like there's not 9 Enneagram types, there's like 27 types, because there's like the archetype and then 3 subtypes below those, which can be like sexual, social, or self-preservation. And based on that, there's one of these types that just doesn't look like an 8, doesn't look like its number, but its motivations are the same. So, you know, that could be it. You could, I think it's I can't remember which one is like the counterphobic, which is like the one that doesn't look like an 8, but that could be you. And I think it also has to do like, for me, 8 being 8 with a 7 wing, people will be like, well, like, you're just not mad enough. You're not angry enough. I'm just like, no, I'm plenty angry. It's just that being angry, it tires me out, and I want to go do something fun instead.
Right. And also I have to consider that I did grow up evangelical, and a lot of that, I think a lot of my 8ness was, you know, worn down by the system. And so how much of it is I just haven't discovered, I just haven't unleashed all of my 8 potential yet.
But listen, I'm ready for it. The year of the 8. So when you are talking with like other parents across the internet waves, and they're like just now starting to figure out like their own discovery, do you ever like, I don't know, I wonder if like there's any like for parents, like, is there any like guilt that people are dealing with around like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I made my kid watch XYZ? Like what?
There's a lot.
Like, what's that like?
Yeah, I think it's hard. A lot of people have raised adult children, and they have a lot of regrets over raising their kids a certain way. And I'm sorry, but we do have to take responsibility for those. Like, for example, I spanked my kid, probably my first kid more than my second kid. I'm completely anti-spanking now. Spanking is bad in every way, and it's confirmed by science, sociologists. Like, it is not a good thing to spank your kids, and you shouldn't do it, which I know now. But I did it to my child, and I deeply regret it. And I feel like I have to take responsibility for that. If I really believe that spanking is harmful, then I harm my child, and we still don't know what kind of effects that has on her. And so I think I think you have to both take responsibility for it, and also there's nothing you could do about it. It's already done. And so you have to also give yourself grace, and it's it's self-indulgent to just continually beat yourself up for something that can't be changed. So move forward, apologize to your kid, make those amends, take responsibility, pay for therapy.
Yes, my God. Say that again.
And then do better. And I think one of the best ways you can do better is to tell your story so that young parents who are raising young kids can do better, and we can support one another. And I love the idea of intergenerational spaces that we can help each other. The young people can help, those who have gone through, especially with parenting. It's such a lifelong endeavor. It is not just it's not just one project. It's raising human beings.
And that doesn't stop after they turn 18 either.
No. And it's such a beautiful thing. It's redemptive to be able to see children grow up in a healthier way. It's redemptive to see young parents raising their children in a better way. And it's healing for yourself, I think. So I love recruiting all kinds of people into parenting spaces, like single people. I love having single people in my group because, gosh, you see our kids in a totally different way. You have more energy. Everyone was once a child. Everyone has parenting lessons because we all went through the growing up process and have really important lessons. And I love seeing men in parenting spaces because so much of these spaces are dominated by women. And that is because of the patriarchy. Right. But we can change all of that, we can make a difference and do better. So
because that's something I also really enjoy about what you just said about having single folks as part of a parenting space, because I love kids. I really do. Yeah. I enjoy being around them. I love youth ministry. I love all those kinds of things. And I really think of when I was youth ministry is parenting in a way. I'm helping shape and inform this teen to help make some decisions. And when I think about how Jesus was creating family different than the day, it was all about who is my mother, who is my brother. It's the person who's right in front of me. So I really resonate with this feeling of just we want to bring every kind of adult around our kids so that they can really experience the breadth and width of what their own human experience can look like,
Right. Yeah. And especially for teens, they'll listen to someone outside of their parents. That's a healthy part of their development. They're differentiating from their parents and finding identity outside of them. So there is a lot of influence, but of course it also makes them very vulnerable to fundamentalism. Right. They can easily fall into a cult. If you're, I think it's important to be mindful that teens will seek authority outside of their parents. And a lot of times, youth pastors in fundamentalist churches are not the safest people.
Yeah.
To be mindful of that. But I want to also make a comment about Jesus and
come on.
And how, the famous passage about him welcoming the children. I think it's really, we underestimate how revolutionary that was, because back in biblical times, children were property. Yes. They were not regarded as full human beings. And so for Jesus to have had that encounter and said, welcome the children was actually incredible. And we should definitely continue that trajectory of what does it mean in our present time to welcome children. I love the story of the New Zealand Prime Minister who held Parliament, and there was like a group of kids who was on a field trip, and, you know, right in the middle of this very adult setting, very serious, she just like opened wide the doors and it's like, hey, does anyone mind if the future generation joins us? You know, and all the kids get up on stage with her. Yeah. And so I just love seeing more adult spaces welcoming children. I think we should see more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the direction we should be moving.
It just makes more sense, like, to me, like, not to mention, like, I feel like if we can allow children, like, I mean, I think about like how like you were doing parenting, and how my friends up at Imaginarium in Nashville are doing like their kids work around their kids and helping their kids like engage in their own spiritual lives. It's really incredible to me. Like I feel like I wonder what would happen, what would have it been like for like you or I if like at a younger age we were encouraged to really make our faith our own and not have like the fundamentalist rules and I wonder like what I would be doing right now. Probably not like probably wouldn't be in seminary, but that's not a bad thing. But it's just so interesting for me to think about like all the what ifs of just like, you know, if I didn't have to pay for all the therapy for the trauma. It's just,
right. Just less to unlearn. We would have less to unlearn. So I don't know, were you raised like what, because I was converted into Christianity when I was 12 years old.
Oh.
And I remember, so I don't know how. Christian? No, they are now, but they weren't when I was growing up.
Okay, interesting.
But I'm just wondering because I remember how vibrant my own spirituality was before I was converted. I was, I think, a deeply spiritual person, but I just didn't have the language for it. And so when the evangelicals came along, it gave me language to kind of put my feelings and my experiences into these categories. Unfortunately, it also taught me a lot of dogma that then could diminish my spirituality. So it kind of shut down my spirituality, which is really sad. And I hope that's the lesson I hope that we don't repeat with our kids. And so I think that, it is interesting to imagine what would happen. I mean, my head led me to some really dark places. Like I was very obsessed about death. I thought about death, but I think that's part of being spiritual, is thinking about death and the finitude of human life, and what does it mean to live like the best life, knowing that death is in our future. And I was thinking about this when I was like 6 years old, you know, but that's what kids are like. They're amazing. Their minds have, their imagination is immense, and they are dealing with themes. That's why children's lit is really powerful. Children's lit is not fluff.
No, it's not at all.
They deal with very transcendent themes.
Like I cry all the time reading children's books.
I know.
I'm like, oh my God, this is so true.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and they're engaging with them, so they're not afraid. So I would encourage parents, you don't be afraid to talk about like the biggest and the darkest and the most mystical issues and stories. Don't be afraid to talk about those with your kids, and be open to letting them share what they're thinking about and wrestling with. I think would be really surprised, and it would make our lives richer.
Yeah. That is one thing I wonder about, because like I don't think that I'm called to be a parent. I think I'm called to be an uncle for sure. And my little brother and my oldest brother, they just had their kids like within 6 months of each other. So we have 2 little babies in our family now. And
that's so fun.
I really want, for my little nieces, I'm just like, I want y'all to experience like a level of freedom from dogma that me and my brothers never had. And I don't know,
do you feel like their parents agree with you?
I think in some ways, yes. It's like it's like, because like my family is really cool with me being queer, and I like brought my partner home and everything. So like I would imagine like if in the future, if either one of these children came out, like they would find themselves in a very loving home. I think that's good. And I think it's very interesting. It's just like, I wonder, like, because my brother and his wife, one of them, they go to this like hipster mega church in Denver, and I'm like, ugh, my God, this place is so gross. Because like, and I even told them, I'm just like, I was like, hey, how'd you like church? I'm just like, I'm 90% sure that if I was attending here, I couldn't participate fully. And they're like, what? No, they love everybody. I'm just like, I looked them up on Church Clarity. I'm like, nah, bruh, they're not.
Yeah. So, you know, the problem is these mega churches are the ones with really good children's ministry.
So good.
Yeah, like they have these amazing rooms. Like, I want to be there if I were a baby, you know?
I want to be there as an adult.
Carpets, personally. Tons of toys.
Carpets, tons of toys.
Yeah,
and,
so it's a problem.
Music.
I know. Really good programs and activities. And so I think that's the problem with a lot of people who like, they don't align with these mega church values, but they have little kids. And if they want to go to church, it's kind of the best place to take. They could just drop their kids off, know that the kids will be taken care of. And whereas, like, you know, the more progressive churches are usually smaller with older people, not a lot of families, and there's no children's ministry.
Yeah, I definitely lucked out. My church has been really, really dope. We have a very like intergenerational mix and have a good kids ministry as like a progressive.
Oh, good.
So, but that's rare. You're absolutely right. That's a rare find.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder too, like with like the evolution of like what the church could become, like how as it's moving further and further away from like big centralized power structures. And this is I think this is like going to be like in our children's generation what they figure out. Like, what if the church is no longer like large buildings, but just like collections of and gatherings of people? We're like, and people like getting back to meeting in people's homes. I started a house church about a year and some change ago that's still going even after I left. But like, it was this sense of everyone was welcome. We had parents who brought their kids, and we had queer folks, and we had POC, and we had immigrant folk. Like it was just like, it was a mess, and it was beautiful, and it was like intergenerational. I'm like, that's the kind of stuff like I want to be a part of. So I'm hoping that like that's what I want for my.
Yeah, it's lovely. I love what Anna is doing with Imaginarium. I love watching them include children in spaces, but it's complicated because she's also told me that, you know, you have these ideas about you want children to be in adult spaces, right? Like that's a philosophy. But in real life, the kids are like, we don't want to be here. We want to go to the kids' table.
Yeah, you know? We want to go have fun.
And so, right, we want to have just children-only spaces. And so I think it's a learning process. But then you wonder how much of that is because they were raised in such segregated ways, right?
There was this really interesting interview from like the early 90s with this one man. I believe he was like I think he was from some yogi path, but he basically said just like I think that the nuclear family should be dissolved in like favor of the commune, of just like we build family together on purpose. You know, we don't do it because like, you know, this is a man, this is a woman, and this is a child. It's like, what if like children were raised by the community? What if children? It just got me really thinking of just like that. If I ever have children, if any, and this is something I told like me and my friends have talked about, is like, if any one of us decides that we want to have children, we need to raise them together. Like as a community, like, yes, there's going to be a lot of like financial burden over here, but like I want to raise that kid alongside my friends, because I want to love it. I love kids. So why would I? Yeah, it's a.
Yeah, and to have, you know, have the kids have many avenues of love, not just from their parents.
Yeah, many uncles and aunts. Like maybe like this is your mom and your dad, but many uncles and aunts and many cousins and many ways to be loved.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. You told me that you are not called to be a parent.
Yeah, I don't think I am.
And that's totally fine. But do you feel like, does that feel do you feel supported in that desire, because I know there's, you know, in culture, there's this pressure to like, you have to have kids to have like a meaningful life. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you don't know love until you know, until you become a parent, which is not true.
Right.
But it's something that gets said. So I guess I want to know how you feel as somebody who doesn't want to become a parent. Do you feel like there's space in these times to be who you are?
I think it's getting there, and like I surround myself with the people who support that kind of dream in me of just being like the world's best gay uncle. I think like I've told my mother, I was like, "Hey, Mom, I don't know if I want to have kids," and she just gives me this look, like, "Yeah, whatever, you're gonna have kids." I'm just like, "Okay, well, you're not listening, but whatever's good."
Or you're gonna change your mind. I think a lot of people
you'll change your mind, and like, because like for me, like I love kids, but I also like when I think about my work and like and this I don't think this is for a while I would call myself selfish, because I would say like I look at where my life is headed, and in order for me to raise a child with any sort of integrity, like to be a good parent to this child, I would have to give up a lot of things. Like to be a parent is like I have to give up. Right. I now have to really like go beyond just like decentering my ego. I have to decenter my whole life to like make sure that we can grow this human into somebody who can feel loved and accepted and able to tackle their own world. And when I think about that kind of sacrifice, it's just like I just don't want to do that. Which like the work that I do is so meaningful to me. Like getting to help queer people become is such a meaningful experience for me. Getting to do church reform work is so meaningful. And that requires for me, like I have to travel and I have to, you know, spend hours and hours like on the internet focused on my projects. And you know, I could there might like, I'm not going to say never, because like you never know, hands of time, but like at this point in my life, like I really think that the more like when I was younger, like in my early 20s, when I was so set on getting married, I was I was there, like I was all for it. Kids, it was like going to be like married by 23, kids by 25, hunker down into your career at age 30 for the next 50 years, and then you can retire at 80, and hopefully you still have your mind. But my path just my life just looks different. And to answer the question of just like, do I feel supported? I think by my people, like my close friends, I feel supported. Like I say, like I don't know if I want to have kids. They're just like, that's cool. And then I would say recently, like I don't think I want to be a parent. And they're just like, all right. And like the way my friend Miles put it is just like, you'll still be a parent. You just won't raise your own babies. It's like you will like I fully want to become like a parental figure for people. Like I want to stand in the gap where other parents may have not been able to do it. Like that's how I think like in some ways what being a pastor is. And so,
well, I feel like with LGBT people, when they come out of the closet later on in life, it's that, you know, there's a little bit of catching up and development, right?
Shit, like I'm still learning how to date.
I don't know, is that offensive to say?
No, it's absolutely true, because like I spent my first 3 years out of the closet trying to figure out how to have healthy relationship and how to recognize healthy relationship. Like my last partner and I, God bless him, it was not a great, it wasn't very healthy. It was very super codependent. And I didn't recognize it because I was so hell bent on being a good Christian boyfriend, #good Christian boyfriend. And to be a good Christian boyfriend meant it looked holding on no matter what, sacrificing until I was like, had nothing left. And it really like, it really kind of just opened my eyes to the way that like I'm still trying to figure this out. And I think there's a lot of queer people who like we give ourselves, it's almost like we have to overperform in order to look normal. So like for me, like the normal thing to do would be get married, have a kid, create a nuclear family, and, you know, continue on with the quote unquote American dream. but because like my development like was stifled, like I didn't believe in like evolution until like 2 years ago. Like that's the level of like I was like a fundamentalist in every single way except for like the gay thing. So it's yeah, I think
so that's why I'm saying I feel like the work that you do can be helping, trying to guide and being a parental figure to young teens or young LGBT people coming out of the closet, and what does it mean to be human? I mean, that's what parenting is about. What does it mean to be human?
Ooh, you better drop a knowledge bomb on them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
I love it. I love doing this work because it's really consistent with everything. Because I started off writing about faith in general and culture and all these other things, the progressive Christian internet thing. And really what we're all trying to do is how to be human. And then doing it through the parenting lens is just fun because there's kids and kids are fun. And being able to kind of see truth come out of children's mouths, which happens a lot more than we think. It's just a joy. They're whimsical. And so I think it kind of adds this, the joy into some of these heavier conversations that we have all the time. So maybe that's my wing 7. I want to talk about social justice, but I want to have fun doing it. And talking about kids is a way to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's true. Like, if we're not having fun in this movement, like it's gonna die. So like we gotta learn how to have some fun. That was my conversation with Cindy Wong Brandt. If you want to get in touch with Cindy, you can check her out online at cindywongbrandt.com. That's CindywangBrandt.com. And then she's at Cindy_W_Brandt on Twitter. Check out her book, Parenting Forward, available all over the place very soon. Be sure to, if you're a parent out there and you want to get in touch with her Facebook group, Parenting Unfundamentalist, go check that out on Facebook. And additionally, if you want more of Cindy Wong Brandt, you can actually check us out on this new thing I'm starting called The After Show. It's just like a little extra 15-minute mini podcast with me and my podcast guests, and it's available to all of my friends on Patreon. So hopefully by the time you're listening to this, that is going to be up and available on my Patreon page for all of my friends who are supporting me at $5 or more per month. You want more Cindy? Join in. She the best. It's so good. Go check her out. Thanks, Cindy, for being on the show today. You are amazing. A Tiny Revolution is supported by 139 amazing people on Patreon, and if you don't know what that is, it is an incredible way for you to give to the creatives in your life who are doing the work that matters, making the content that matters. So if you liked this episode, please consider becoming a supporting partner. Even as little as $1 or $2 a month really does make a huge difference, and if you go for more than that, there are some awesome perks, including meditations, which are going to be out by the week's end. There are t-shirts involved from my new t-shirt line, Queerly Beloved Tees. There's a Slack channel where you can hang out with us. There's coaching calls. There's all sorts of amazing things. So why don't you go ahead and head over to patreon.com/TheKevinGarcia and learn how you can support this work. Seriously, it makes all the difference, and it doesn't happen without you. I think that's all my things. Go check out Queerly Beloved Tees. Get that coupon code. Go subscribe to the blog. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And one extra thing you can do to help this podcast and all of my work out is to share it on social media. Seriously, having friends like you spread the word about this is how we get this podcast in the ears of more people. Another way that you can help get this podcast in the ears of more people is by leaving us a review on iTunes. So if you're unable to give financially, maybe you can give with a little click, click, click of your mouse, keyboard, or fingers on your iPhone or Android device. Go ahead and leave me a 5-star review. Tell people why you love the show. And if you don't like the show, then why are you listening? Go away. Go do something better with your time. I know that I'm wonderful, but literally you can do something so much better. Anyways, until next time, my friends, please go see your therapist, take your meds, eat something yummy. KonMari your clothes, y'all. I literally spent an afternoon going through, asking what sparked joy, threw out a bunch of stuff, and then folded everything in the KonMari style. My stuff is so organized, my room is so clean, and I think I might be able to like keep this going. So like if you are looking for like, you know, a husband out here in these streets who like wants to declutter your life, holler at me. Also, happy Valentine's Day to all of you. You are my loves. And if you're alone on Valentine's Day, you're not alone because you're with yourself and you can treat yourself. So do all those things I just said. KonMari your life. Take yourself out for Valentine's Day. Do something sweet for yourself. Fall in love with yourself more because God's in love with you. Anyways, I'm done talking. This has been another episode of A Tiny Revolution. My name's Kevin Garcia, and I'll talk to you next time, babe. Bye.